A race to the top here now with Alex Johnson, who is president or executive director of CONCAN, an education advocate group, and here also with Danielle Smith, a return visit, who is president or director of the Connecticut Black Education Alliance for Education Options. I know I butchered that, but get the point. You're also an education advocate. Both you here, achievement gap, round one. How does a state with the highest achievement gap in America not become eligible for the funding in round one? Who's to blame?
Well, it's not just the highest achievement gap. We also have one of the largest structural deficits. So no state needs to win this as much as we do. There's up to $200 million at stake. And, you know, this is like a relay race. And the baton is now passed to the legislature. And this is a great opportunity for us because this legislature has a real record of accomplishment on education reform. Biggest overhaul of teacher certification in 25 years last year. And Race to the Top is all about state policy change. So we're actually feeling very encouraged. We just had a big education committee hearing. The committee has raised some very important bills and is considering those right now.
So what's missing, Danielle? The state didn't make the first cut. Alex outlined that they should be in position. So what is missing? What makes the compelling case for Connecticut to get those dollars?
Well, there's some very key reforms that we're missing. We don't have an effective way of linking teacher evaluation to student achievement and progress. We don't have a very strong charter law that funds our charter schools adequately in a sustainable fashion. And we certainly need to increase our pipelines for having excellent school leaders in front of our, well, leading the schools, especially those with the highest need.
All right, so it sounds to me like you're going to have a potential union problem. All those issues there, charter schools and performance, is the union going to buy into it? Because that's going to be very critical here, right?
Well, what we're seeing in other states is that other states are actively passing legislation on all those points that Danielle just outlined. And, you know, obviously nationally, this is a big question we're all having right now.
But my question is, will the unions buy it?
Well, listen, you know, people can go back and look at the CTN footage from Monday night's hearing, and I think what you'll see is that folks from the AFT and the CEA are not too enthused about a lot of these ideas. But the reality is that as a country, we're moving in this direction. And President Obama just announced his plans for reauthorizing what used to be called No Child Left Behind. And all of these ideas are going to be required of states moving forward. So in Race to the Top, we have the opportunity to get ahead of that, win up to $200 million. But, you know, whether or not we're going to have to make these policy changes sooner or later. And there's a great opportunity to do it now. And they make sense for kids.
I'd also like to add that we had something remarkable that happened on Monday that we haven't seen before, which was the extreme and tremendous parental support of these policy changes. We had hundreds of parents and students and advocates at the before the legislature, in the LOB, at the Capitol, all rallying in support of this. And so whether or not, you know, those who are protectors of the status quo are resistant to these changes or not, it's evident that communities are calling for this and that there are there's a tremendous push from leadership at the state level to actually enact them.
So won't the carrot ultimately be to the union that, listen, this is going to create more jobs? If there's going to be resistance and back and forth, isn't the ultimate carrot that these dollars equate ultimately to jobs?
Well, you know, look, at the end of the day, say linking student achievement growth to teacher evaluation, that makes sense for the teaching profession. And the reality is that in New Haven, the New Haven Federation of Teachers, an affiliate of the AFT, has signed an agreement that's really groundbreaking that does just that.
And they were lauded across the country for doing so.
Exactly.
Right?
And the legislation that the Education Committee is currently considering certainly doesn't go further than what's already been agreed to in New Haven. So I think that there are some signs of folks thinking in new ways, but as a state, we have to set up a policy framework that supports innovation and professionalism at the local level.
Let's look at those elements. We have what I call the proposed changes, all right? We start with charter schools, getting more money for charter schools. Right now, some say they're underfunded. They're given, what, $9,000 per student, where the average school is getting $14,000. Connecticut has some great charter schools. Let's talk about that. What are the legs there to get more money for these charter schools?
Well, look, you know, Connecticut's one of only 3 states in the country that funds charter schools with an annual line item appropriation. And, you know, the feds are saying very clearly, and everybody in Connecticut is saying, this is not a sustainable way to move forward.
Let the money follow the kid.
Let the money follow the child.
So walk through that. When people say that, if you have a kid in Bloomfield or Windsor, pick a town, walk it through real quick. What does that mean? Have the money follow the kid. What does that mean? Everyone said it. I'm not sure everyone quite understands it.
Sure. Well, if a kid leaves a district to go to a charter school, then the money that district would otherwise have spent on that kid should follow that kid to the charter school. What we do right now, I mean, it's crazy what we do right now. We separately appropriate through the legislature a new $9,300 of funding for that kid in the charter school, and the state doesn't move any money from where the kid used to be.
So double dipping. So basically, you're spending twice. You're saying you're spending for the kid in Bloomfield and then spending again for the slot at the charter school.
And we've calculated.
So why did that happen? Because I mean, you're spending twice as much money, right?
Yes, and now we're going to get down into the details. The reason that happens is the way we set up our law in the first place, which was for the laudable aim of incenting districts to participate in the chef settlement and other things. So with magnet schools, we do the same thing. We double fund them. But the problem is that as charter and magnet schools have grown, we're now spending close to $200 million a year on double funding. And in fact, to incentivize districts to participate in these choice programs.
Sounds like wasteful spending. Danielle, second element in the proposed changes, linking performance, teachers, educators to student performance. It gets a little dicey, right? For that student, that educator who has moved the kid from point A to point B, but the state guideline is point A, they get penalized, right? I mean, how do you really measure improvement?
Well, that's why the concept of a growth model is so important. It's not about identifying this one single benchmark where every child needs to be, because children learn at different rates and children are coming from further behind and need to be moved forward. But it's a way of helping teachers to appreciate that. According to the Obama administration, when we were looking at what teachers should be doing, 1 year should equal 1 year's worth of instruction. That child should have learned that, and they should have moved that amount in that amount of time that the teacher has had with their students. So we need to be making sure that our children who need it the most are getting quality instruction from effective teachers in the classroom.
Because you could have an A student who doesn't really improve a whole lot in one given year, and a C student goes to a B, and you're doing a good job with that C student, but you know, it could be misleading if people don't understand that it's about the individual growth and not just the collective sort of growth of that, right? It gets a little confusing how you measure that and who gets rewarded for that. Final issue, parent trigger. Very controversial. If a school is unsuccessful 3 consecutive years not performing, a proposal to have the parents, 51% can then move in to say, you know what, we want to reform the school. Some say that's a very dangerous precedent, giving parents all that power. What's the counter to that argument?
That parents are currently one of the only stakeholder in the child's educational in the educational system that don't have a voice. They're not able to directly influence and make a decision about how they want their children educated, and parents absolutely have the right to choose. And so parents should not be caught. We have over almost 200 failing schools across Connecticut in our districts. Parents should not have to be sort of left to just determine that that is all that there is for them, when we have evidence that schools can do better with the same population of students.
10 seconds. Open for misuse. Can you have a very active parents group say every 3 years you want so-and-so gone? Can it be intimidating for educators if you have parents who can, by a simple majority, throw you out of there after 3 bad years?
Well, listen, here's what I would say. Folks may not actually read legislation very often, but if you read the legislation on all of the issues we've just talked about, it's all stuff that's been enacted in other states, and it's not actually as scary as people think. You know, I sit on a board of education, and the parent trigger is a way for parents to get involved, but the Board of Ed still has the final decision.
Accountability. All right, here again with Alex Johnson, Danielle Smith.